record on this computer. All right, so first of all, welcome everyone. I think everyone knows me by now, but just in case you don't, my name is Eddie, and I'm going to be coordinating this work integrated learning experience for you guys. I'm going to say this, there's a lot of work in the background which you guys don't see. I'm not expecting any sympathy, except just to say that just be a little bit patient. Occasionally, there is a lot of admin work in the background that we need to sort out. This time around, it's been particularly challenging because of all the changes in the colleges, and we're moving to a single university sort of central operational unit. You've probably seen some of that in the background. It's been a little bit difficult to get all the admin work done, but the good news is if you're on this call, that means we've managed to take care of your paperwork for your work integrated learning placement, barring maybe one or two individuals that are still being processed. There are 30 students that have been processed by now, which means 30 students are in WIL or will be officially, but at least you've got your placement. So congratulations to each one of you that are on this call and have been placed and secured a placement. It's not an easy thing to do. You've passed the interviews, you've done your job. Okay, so you might think that was the hard part. Well, the hard part comes now, which is delivering on the promise. And the promise is that you're going to deliver quality work to the company. The promise from the company and at Trobe University is that you're going to get an amazing learning opportunity that most students in Australia don't get to this level. So congratulations again for making it this far, and I do hope that you will enjoy your experience. The purpose of this presentation really is an onboarding session for students and academics who will be supervising you while you're on your placement. And we've put together a little bit of an outline of this presentation just so you have a rough idea what it is that we're going to be talking about. So we're going to go overall in terms of what the workload expectations are on you, what you're going to be doing, deliverables, assessments, supervision, etc., etc. There are 1,000,001 questions in WIL. Some of them will come up immediately after this presentation. Some of them will be ad hoc as you go through your placement. What I will say is you should always feel comfortable to ask questions, irrespective of the topic domain, whether it's related to your day-to-day in the company or something assessment related. We're here to support you. That being said, you can sometimes use common sense and answer your own questions without burdening us. But if unsure, ask the question. It's best to ask the question rather than go ahead, full steam ahead, make a blunder that might be resulting in something much worse. So be open to ask questions. We've been together for 3.5 years, 3 years, academic staff and students. So we're a team now, right? We're no longer the academics and the students per se. We're now a team, and we're delivering for Team La Trobe University. And that means your performance in the company is equally important to us as it is to you, because our reputation is on the line. And I start with myself, Noor, Daniel, who are directly out there dealing with the companies on a daily basis, wriggling, wheeling, dealing, doing all sorts of stuff to get you guys into the company. So my first piece of advice is make sure that you are always performing at your best. We all have our good and bad days, but make sure consistently that you're putting in the maximum effort. And that way you'll secure yourself a job long-term, but also secure a good reputation for the rest of us. The rest of the presentation is really going to be about how do you achieve success in the academic sense, more so than what you achieve success in the company. That will be done at a later point. But of course, what makes WIL unique is that you do get a 6-month industry experience as part of your 4-year study, but there is a very high level of expectation. I'll be very frank up front and say the workload is high. You'll be expected to work more than what you've been working in your previous 3 years of study. Don't think of yourself as a student anymore. Start thinking of yourself as an engineer. 1 foot is through the door. Whether you get the 2nd foot through the door or not is really up to you. But this experience is certainly holding that door wide open so you can step in. And that's why you have to make sure that you organize your time well. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well in this presentation. Lastly, you'll get some advice from some academics that have done this type of supervision before in terms of hints and tips, how to get through this and do it effectively, not panic, and not delay things like you would with previous subjects you may have taken along the way. So here's a little bit of an overview. Most of you already know what work integrated learning is. So I'm not going to go into the details of it, but just very quickly, you're replacing the four walls of an academic institution with the four walls of a commercial or government entity in which you will learn by doing rather than by just reading and sitting exams and doing labs. So you are going to be an engineer for the next 6 months, which means that there are no more excuses. There's no such thing as I can be right 50% of the time and get through, right? It doesn't work like that in companies. You have to be right 100% of the time. Obviously, as a young engineer, you're not going to be expected to be right 100% of the time, but the expectation will be there that by the time you conclude this placement, that you live, breathe, and operate like an engineer. So expectations are high of you. If you treat yourself like an engineer with the level of accountability and delivery, then they will also treat you like that as well. And that's a very important sort of maturity process of going through 3 years of undergraduate education to becoming a fully fledged qualified engineer, right? So you're almost there, you're on the home stretch. It's important that you understand that you have 800 hours of obligation towards the company. I've mentioned this in the info sessions before you applied for WIL. Once you complete 800 hours, you are no longer obliged to work for the company under this contract that's in place. So there's a likelihood that you'll be offered a casual contract or a full-time role. It really depends on how they want to go forward, and it really depends on how you want to go forward. But keep in mind, you have 800 hours of obligation. The scholarship part, I don't want to talk about it, it's something that we've already discussed. But the most important part for today's presentation is the final delivery for academia is a thesis. So there'll be lots of little assessments along the way, but all roads lead to you delivering a research capstone experience document that is approximately 50, maybe 70 pages long, which encapsulates what you did in the company in terms of a research project. Now, some of you always get confused around this topic. It's like, oh, when I'm working in the company, I don't get the research part. The only way that we could fit 6 months of work experience as part of your 4 years of undergraduate education and still give you, everything in 4 years rather than 4.5 years was to fuse the capstone research project, which some other students are doing, ARA, ARB, and the work experience. And that's why we only select the best students for work integrated learning. When I say best, I don't necessarily mean best academically. I mean best in terms of managing time, communicating, managing people, etc., etc. You are the master of your own destiny here. And that's why setting yourself up for success in this subject is all about organizing yourself, regularly meeting with your supervisor, regularly keeping your eyes open for little bits and pieces that you need to do, rather than letting everything just collapse on your shoulders in the last few weeks. The subject is broken up into 2 subjects, but for all argument's sake, you are in one experience that is made up of 2 parts. And each part has academic deliverables that you need to achieve. If you do not achieve the ones in part A, we can and will pull you out of the experience. It's a very nasty experience to go through. We've only had to do it once or twice before, but we will not hesitate for whatever reason if we see that you're not managing, if we see that you're not delivering in the company, or if you're just struggling completely with the whole experience. We'll rather save everyone else's cheek and really go forward and pull you out, place you back into ARA, ARB. That being said, I don't expect that to happen with this cohort. We have some very good students on this call. So guys, please don't panic now, but see that warning and make sure that you don't fall behind. Okay, as part of that experience, besides the thesis, you also have to reflect on your learning. Too many times throughout this 4-year degree, you're just charging forward, sitting exams, doing labs. You never have real time, or at least you probably haven't thought too much about what is it that I'm actually learning? How am I applying that? Nowhere is it more important than in work integrated learning that you take moments to think about what it is that you're learning and trying to connect that to your academic experience, because that's where the real links will happen. We always say that the final year of engineering studies is an aha moment where those things come together and you really start to fuse all those experiences together. We're going to really push you to do that in work integrated learning as an experience. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, the importance of it. You already know, but I want to talk to you about all those skills that you're going to be applying as of day one. I know that some of you have already started your experience, right? Maybe you can put a thumbs up with the icon here if you've started your experience already, just so I know, I have a rough feeling that a fair few of you have already started. For those that haven't started, you will see that working in a company, a professional environment is a lot different to being a student at the university. There's no such thing as being late, right? Being late is not acceptable. Delivering 100% of the time is expected of you, as opposed to, as I said before, putting in a little bit of an effort here, a little bit of an effort there, and just scraping through. We can't have that happening here. But most importantly, you're going to have to learn what it means to truly operate in a team. Regardless of whether you're working in an SME or a large multinational organization, you're working in a team. There'll be some people there that you like, there'll be some people there that you don't like. But at the end of the day, no one cares whether you like someone or not. What they care is whether you can deliver or not. And that delivery sometimes means having to work with people that aren't necessarily your cup of tea. I guarantee you're going to have some probably bad experiences on your placement as well. When I say bad, I probably mean micro bad experiences rather than something that's going to, fully push you out of the experience, but be prepared for them. But remember, you have a network here. What I want everyone on this call to do is understand that every single student on placement is going to have a slightly different experience. There'll be some common elements, but there'll be some different elements. Make sure that you utilize the network to overcome certain challenges. Right? You might have a difficult person you're working with. You can always ask me for advice. You can ask your academic for advice, but you can also ask your peers for advice. So utilize that network as best as you can. And remember, this is testing the water. The company that you're placed in right now is not the company that you're going to be working forever, right? The days of a person working in one company for 50 years are long gone. It's very, very unlikely. In fact, it's very, very rare that someone will work longer than a few years in a company in industry. You'll be swapping around because you want to, not necessarily because they don't want you, but because you want to move on to greener and better pastures. Whether that's a good choice or not, time will tell. But be aware, this is an experience. It's not set in stone. So if you're doing something that doesn't necessarily tickle your fancy, it's not something that you enjoy doing, then there are methods to get around that, right? You're going to be expected to do the odd jobs. You're a junior engineer in the company. You don't get to choose what you do. The company chooses what you do. But just remember one piece of advice. From everything that you do, you will learn something, right? You might even learn that you don't like something, and that's still a learning experience for you, because that will help you decide where you want to undertake your graduate role once you actually get your Trobe diploma and move forward. So please go in with an open mind, maximize the learning experience as best as you can, and everything else will be amazing. So what do we expect from you? There's a lot, right? Most of all, let's start with some of the basics. You have to be highly respectful of everyone that you work with, right? It means smiling from time to time. It's the simple things that get you through life, right? You've heard me say this before. 50% is likability, 50% is capability. That might seem silly given the fact that you're doing 4 years of engineering, and you might say, well, Eddie, if it's likability and capability, why do I have to do 4 years of engineering? Why can't I do 2 years of likability and 2 years of engineering, right? That's not the way the world works. But essentially what I'm trying to tell you is that simple things make teams tick. Being polite, professionally communicating with people, dressing professionally to the workplace if that's the expectation. You will find that out once you commence your placement. They will tell you what's expected. If they don't tell you, ask the question. You don't want to be the silly person turning up to work looking like a bit of a stooge if they're expecting you to dress very professionally. It'll depend on your role. If you're in a construction, you're probably not going to be wearing a suit and tie to site, right? You're going to be wearing hard hat, boots, etc., etc. If you're in a consulting design role, you're probably going to be wearing pants, shoes, and a shirt, at least. Probably don't have to wear a tie, but please try to dress appropriately as expected of you. Most of all, communications. You have to have open communications with your supervisors. You're going to have one industry supervisor, one academic supervisor. 99% of problems that we encounter in life stem from communications. A lack of poor communications or no communications whatsoever. Today, Daniel and I visited 2 companies here in Ballarat. And again, without any instigation, both companies said that the one thing that's missing in graduates is communications, good communications. And it's causing a lot of problems. So I'd like to think that our students and our graduates have an upper hand on that because we keep talking about the importance of it. So please keep an open communication line with everyone. Always ask questions. There's never a dumb question. I know you've heard that before, but it well and truly means that. Keep communicating, and that will ensure that you don't have a misunderstanding and do something stupid. Time management is one that we keep talking about at the undergraduate level, but nowhere is it going to be more important than in work integrated learning. You're going to have to work in a company, or what we say, learn and work in a company from 8 to 4, 9 to 5, or whatever the arrangements might be. It's probably going to be a typical 8-hour day. Some guys will be working 8 and 12-hour days, but they know who they are, and their arrangements are slightly different because they will also get days off to make up for that time based on what we expect in Australia. So no one's going to be working overtime for the sake of overtime. You'll be compensated for it. But because you have that work arrangement, you will come home tired, right? You're going to come home tired and say, oh, that's different. I actually have to deliver for those 8 or 9 hours. And all of a sudden, you're going to find yourself tired, but still needing to do academic related work. And that's why time management in this experience is crucial. You can't afford to just be lazy and not plan things. You have your academic delivery and you have your day-to-day work delivery. You're probably going to find that in the first 3 or 4 weeks of your placement, there's going to be a lot of pressure on you just to familiarize yourself with the environment. Who are the people? What are the processes? Who do I report to? How do I communicate? How do I lodge this? There's a lot of that stuff that you need to know. It's very much like your first day at university. It's a new environment, new people, new processes, and you've got to get your head around it. And it's not an easy thing to do. So we are not going to expect you to perform miracles academically in the first few weeks. We fully understand that. But you need to communicate if you're struggling with some elements of delivery. That time management means that you're going to have to deliver on 2 fronts. And I'm just talking about work, university. For those of you that have worked while you're studying, you're probably going to find this a lot easier. For those of you that have not worked or have never worked before, I know there are a few of you, this is going to change your life forever. And you might not like it to start with, but that's just the world that you're going to be in the future. So what I expect you to do is manage your personal time really, really well, right? And that means if you've got a boyfriend, girlfriend, you want to see mum and dad and brother and sister, you want to go out with the boys for beers, or you want to go out with the ladies for shopping, whatever it is, that is your thing. But that cannot be used as an excuse for delivering poorly at the company or delivering poorly at the university. We're all adults now. We're all experienced now. We've been through it all. But this is the League of Champions. This is not a mediocrity program. So I expect everyone in the program here to really step it up a notch. It's 6 months where you're going to be under pressure. And after that, things will get a little bit easier for you because you won't have the academic pressure so much. But please, 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 on behalf of me and all the academics here, stay on top of things, organize your time well. If you don't have a diary, if you don't use a calendar, please use one. Okay, this is something that's expected of you. Companies will expect you to do that. You'll have to have a diary. You're going to have to take a lot of notes. You're going to have to jot things down along the way. And you're going to have to know when things are due and how to do them, etc., etc. Don't expect every answer to be served up for you. That's not what this experience is about. That also covers task management. I can't say it enough times, but unlike in academia, where you have someone reminding you occasionally, hey, by the way, this is due, and hey, by the way, you should do this, and hey, you didn't do this well enough. The corporate environment is not like that, right? You will be expected to take notes. You'll be expected to manage yourself. You will have someone managing you, but it makes their job a lot easier if you can self-manage. That means you've got to be your own manager. Manage your time, manage your task, manage the people around you, manage the interactions, manage the relationships, etc., etc. Start practicing it. It's a really good thing to do early on. You'll have much more success. And lastly, if there's any professional misconduct, whatsoever, and I'm pretty sure you know what I mean by that, you will be pulled out of the experience, right? We will not tolerate that. We've had 1 or 2 incidents before. So please ask if there's some sort of obscure topic that you need to ask, and there are many, believe me. Please ask us whatever you can. I really don't want to have to do that again. It was a really bad experience for all of us. So what are your deliverables? What do you actually have to deliver towards the university? So first, let me ask the question, how many of you can actually see EMS 4 WLA and EMS 4 WLB, or 5 WLB and WLA, on your LMS? I hope everyone, but how many? Can you just put your hand up and tell me whether you can see that, or thumbs up with your Zoom account, just so I can see. Okay, a couple. So for the rest of you, please ensure that you can actually see work integrated learning on your LMS. If you can't see it, that means you're not enrolled yet. And if you're not enrolled yet, that can be a problem. Everyone needs to be enrolled before you actually start. I know that doesn't always happen, but I'm going to keep pushing you to do that. Using that as an excuse for submitting any assessment late is not going to be accepted, right? This is why I sent you an email to get you enrolled into the subject so we can see you. So I need to see you in LMS in order to do the rest of the work. Anyways, once you've done that, which hopefully you have, there are some assessment pieces that you need to be aware of, and I've broken them up into 2 parts here. WLA, 5 and 4. 5 because we have some master's students here as well, and 4 because most of you are undergraduate students. The expectations between the 2 are slightly different. On your right-hand side, you can see UG and PG. UG for undergraduates, so for bachelors, which is 4 WLA, and PG for the postgraduates. The only difference between the 2 is that the quality of work expected at the master's level is higher, and also the substantial amount of work delivered by master's students needs to be slightly higher as well. This is not just governed by Trobe University, it's governed by TEXA and the expectations of different levels of education. But I will run quickly through the assessment pieces so that you're aware what's expected in WLA. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on that one than on WLB, because no one is currently in WLB, i.e. you're not doing the assessments, you'll do them later. In WLA, there are 3 assessments, equally important, but the most important one, of course, is the project plan, right? The project plan is important because this is the foundation of your success, right? It's not the first one due. The first one due is your actual project proposal. The project plan is due at the end of the experience, right? At the end of the 12 weeks of commencing it, but it is the most significant and most important one. In this project plan, you need to outline the plan for your research. What is it that you're going to be researching? You need to outline your literature review, which in this sense is reading about the topic that you're going to conduct research on, understanding what others have done in this domain and what you're going to do as part of your experience.
Eddie, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt for a second. The word count on the first one there, guys, that's not correct. It's 2,000 to 2,500.
Yeah,
it should be pretty obvious because the word counts are weighted approximately to the percentage. But yeah, that's all good. You'll figure that out anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dan. You're right. I actually looked at that, but I thought we can fix that later. So as you can see, the 3 assessment pieces are divided between 20, 20, and 60%. Given the fact that the project plan is worth 60%, immediately that tells you it's the most important piece of work that you deliver in the first half of your work integrated learning experience. There are project plan examples on LMS, so don't panic if you don't know how to write one. You also have an academic supervisor who will be providing you with guidance along the way. We'll talk about that in a minute. But be aware that's the one that's very, very important. Besides that one, the one that's expected and due 6 weeks after you commence your placement, 4 to 6 weeks on average, is the project proposal. Right? I'll talk about how you decide what to actually do within the project in terms of your research topic, but that one is the first one due. And at the same time as your project plan, which is due at the end of the first experience, is also the oral presentation. So this is your short video presenting what you've done to date in that experience as well. There's a lot more detail on each one of these assessments on LMS, so please be aware that you need to do some reading on your own. The second half of your work integrated learning experience is what we call the serious end of town, because everything, as I said, all the roads lead to your thesis. The thesis is by far the most important piece of work that you will produce during this entire experience, and it is a significant piece of work. Now, for your thesis, which is worth 70% of your overall WLB experience, you can leverage off the work from WLA. This is why if you do a really good project plan, some of your project plan is also part of your thesis. So if you're worried about, oh crap, 7,000 to 8,000 words, that's a lot of words, Eddie. Well, keep in mind that some of that word count will come from your project plan. So if you do a good literature review, it's a basically copy and paste type exercise in transposing that to your thesis work. But the remainder of that thesis work is something that you need to continually work on. The best advice that I can give you there is have a look at the deliverables that we have on LMS, look at the structures. There is a template that you will use, and work towards that template as you're working through your WIL experience. Don't wait till 2 weeks until it's due. This is something that you cannot do in 2 weeks. You get a lot of advice from your academic supervisors. You need to plan it really, really well. The other two alternative assessments is the WIL Symposium. The WIL Symposium in times of no COVID is you arriving at a single venue with a poster of your work that you've done and presenting that to your peers and presenting that to academics. Unfortunately, for the last 2 years, we've had COVID disrupting those things, so we've done online. I believe in your experience, we will do that face-to-face unless, fingers crossed, this new variant of COVID puts us out again. But hopefully that won't be the case. I'm slightly confident it won't be. But keep in mind, we're always flexible to deliver. And your total capstone reflection, an important piece of work. This is where you will reflect on the entire work integrated learning experience. You will look at what you've learned, how you've applied yourself, how that connects to what you've actually learned during your 3 years of your undergraduate experience prior to work integrated learning. You can see it's worth 10% of your overall experience. This is more of a timeline to show you how things cascade together. I talked about it before, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. Keep in mind these weeks, week 6, week 12, week 12, week 18, week 24, 24. Okay. One comment that overarches all of this is in work integrated learning, everything is flexible. What does that mean? It means that all of you started at different times. John started in, I don't know, 3rd week of November. Peter started in the 1st week of December. Melanie is starting on the 15th of December. That automatically means that your due dates are not going to be the same. So if you hassle me with emails, Eddie, it says it's due on the 6th of January, but I started late, I'm not going to answer your email, because you should be aware of this presentation and the fact that yours will not be due. However, don't expect me to keep reminding you when something is due. You need to manage yourself. Just like you manage yourself in the company, you need to manage yourself academically. That means you need to communicate to your academic supervisor and ensure that they are not burdened with having to manage you constantly, telling you, hey, this is due now, you should submit this. You have your guidelines, you know when you're starting. So if you're starting today, that means your project proposal is going to be due on the 15th of January. So you should, on your calendar, in your plan, you should plonk in a reminder that is due then, and you should put in a reminder 2 weeks before that is due. If you're really bad at managing your time, you might want to put more reminders in there, but it's your responsibility to do that equally. Equally, 800 hours of work experience in this instance is approximately 114 working days, 23 weeks. As part of that, you'll also have some breaks. You'll also have some downtime. You also have some sick leave available to that extent as well. So keep it in mind, all of these things are fairly flexible. This is just a note so you're aware when you ask me questions like, oh, Eddie, we have to do a lot of work. The guys that are doing ARA, ARB don't have to do this much work. Yes, I'm aware of this, and you should also be aware that your ability to get a job is significantly easier, and that's why your workload is significantly higher. But as I said, the workload in this expectation here is that you all have come a long way to get into the program. So that means we believe you can handle the workload. That being said, be aware that we are flexible with due dates. We don't want you to fail in the company as a result of us pushing you to deliver a piece of assessment. Flexibility does not mean that you take advantage of the position and take advantage of the academic who's
Road closure in 7 kilometers. You are on the fastest route. You will arrive at
Please mute
6:29.
yourself, Harjit. I think it's you at the moment. You got your audio on.
That's not me. I'm not sure who that is, but all right. So please, guys, manage your workload by ensuring that you stay on top of things. That's all I can say. All of these bullet points here are just telling you this is an expected workload and you're expected to deliver at a very high level. Probably the most important topic, the one that we can keep discussing time and time again, is the research topic. How do you select a research topic within the company? So let me just give you my overview, and then I'm going to give Daniel an opportunity, who's recently completed, I say recent, last few years, completed this, and he can tell you how he went about choosing his topic. Remember, in the company expects you to deliver on a day-to-day basis as a junior engineer. That means you're going to be doing things that are fun. You're going to be doing things that are boring. You're going to be doing things that are non-engineering related, or at least the way you believe engineering should be done. Engineers do a lot more than just sit there and design things, right? You do a lot more, and you will learn what engineers do on a day-to-day basis. You might have a very diverse work environment, which means that you'll have a lot of scope to do research topics on. But what we expect in the first few weeks of your placement is to familiarize yourself what the company does, who is supervising you, what they do on a day-to-day basis, what your role will be in the organization to start with, and then looking at any opportunities or any problems the company is trying to solve. Those problems can be articulated into a research topic. My advice is don't be too grand and too ambitious, right? Trying to solve every problem under the hood, but at the same time, don't be lazy and pick something that's going to be boring. Whatever you pick as a topic needs to be done in consultation with, one, your industry supervisor, who you'll be assigned once you commence your work. You might have multiple supervisors, but you'll have one go-to person. And your academic supervisor, which we will assign. In fact, we've already assigned them, but you will find out who they are shortly. These two individuals will provide you with invaluable input into what you've picked as a potential topic, whether it's worth doing or not, whether there's enough scope on the topic. Remember, you've got to write 50 to 70 pages of a thesis. If you pick something that can't be stretched and articulated, then it's going to be a problem and you're going to struggle. So please use your supervisors to think about that and how you do that. The topic needs to add value to the company. That is important. It's not, it must, but it's one of those things that will make a lot more sense. If you're doing something that the company doesn't want you to do, or I'm going to be blunt, as boring as batshit for the company, that I want to actually supervise it, it's not going to add value to your experience. The best kind of experience and the best result is if what you're doing on the day-to-day job, or some element of it, can be stretched into a research topic for your thesis. So if I fast forward 6 months, you are standing in the company boardroom, right in front of the director, senior engineer, and a bunch of people, and you're presenting what research you conducted in parallel to the work that you did in the company. And that report adds value to the organization, and they say, you know what, John, that is fantastic. We want to actually look at how we utilize this on a day-to-day basis, or you help them achieve something. That's the purpose of it. Of course, the other purpose of it is for you to learn how to conduct research and how to actually articulate that, but also needs to make sense for the company. And these could be anything from feasibility studies. It can be a new product. It could be benchmarking technology or processes. It can be investigating a certain fault. It could be discovering something that's completely new in the company. There's a lot of stuff that you can do. You need to keep an open mind and you need to communicate to your supervisor. There needs to be good literature on your topic. So when I say literature, we don't just talk about literature that's found in a journal or a conference paper or the web. The web is not the only source of information. We're also talking about documentation that can be found in the company, proprietary information, intellectual property, right? Textbooks, right? Operations manuals. There's a lot of information that you have access to, and you need to read through this before you make a case for a research topic and justify why that you've chosen something to do. What does the literature say? What are you going to do differently? The scope needs to be very clear and manageable. We say manageable, don't try to attempt something that's going to take 6 years to do. It's got to be done within the 6-month period. So if the company is working on a project, and I'll give you an example like the Snowy Hydro, this is a multi-year project, right? And it has many elements to this project which you need to be involved in. But you're going to pick one small part of that project which you're going to see and which you're going to articulate. So don't try to boil the ocean is what I'm trying to say. And you have to take charge of your research. That means you are going to do the research, not your academic supervisor and not your industry supervisor. It's on you. The people are there to serve you as advisors, but they will not do the work for you. You are now becoming a fully fledged engineer. I'm going to ask Daniel now to talk you through his experience briefly and how he discovered his research topic within the organization to give you just an example of how that can be done.
Thanks, Eddie. Okay, guys, so it will be quite difficult to manage your thinking around your topic and your work in the company. Some of you will align closely. Sometimes your research will be very different to what you're actually doing on the day-to-day basis. So apart from the topic selection stuff, which has been talked about here, one of the most important things to do is for you to know at what stage in the process you're up to and keep a really good oversight of that. So what I mean by that is you've got your project proposal, your project plan, progress reports, you're going to submit your thesis, you're going to do your WIL symposium, etc. That kind of gives you a natural progression with a rough timeline to work through. Okay, and that means that whatever phase you're in, you need to clearly understand that. So what that means in practical terms is at the very start of your WIL, after you've had a couple of weeks getting used to the company, meeting people, developing your confidence, and you're looking at putting together your project proposal, right? At that stage, it's a great idea to have multiple proposals in mind, have multiple lines of thinking, and not to get stuck in the classic engineering mindset of just digging down and trying to solve a problem. Think about all of you who've done IDS innovation with myself and Eddie, or applied advanced engineering innovation. We always say you've got to define the problem well at the start. So this is the exact same thing, but now you're doing it in a company. And you're going to find multiple problems and select from the best one. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. Your awareness of the point in the process you're at is going to be important. So what that meant for me, right? When I did this, I was working in a manufacturing company. We were doing manufacturing, we were doing mechanical. I was working with CNC machines, wire cutters, traditional engineering processes, robot welding cells, design for manufacture consultation, a number of processes surrounding this stuff. But we talked about a few things. We talked about doing inventory management with RFID tags. We talked about optimizing some of the data that comes off machines so that we can talk about lead times and processing times and look for some issues. But where I actually ended up doing my topic was around software that runs the business and looking at business planning philosophy. So there's a concept called enterprise resource planning, which is literally if you have an enterprise, so a business, and you have resources, how do you plan and manage that? So that's everything from stock numbers to raw material in through the door, to processing, to human resources, to finances, to everything else. And all of that data has to be managed somewhere, okay? Now, the business that I was working in did manage this data to some degree, but they were very aware they weren't doing it in a contemporary, up-to-date way. So what I put together was a proposal for capturing the business requirements for new ERP, for new ERP software. Now, this company wanted to write their own software. They had an arm that was doing software development. Okay, so I essentially ended up creating a process to develop a number of flowcharts, right? And that process was based on literature. It was based on best practice in writing and a number of case studies, etc. But what happened very early in the project was I had to sit down and benchmark each of the potential directions against each other. We looked at inventory management as a standalone thing. We looked at ERP, we looked at a number of other things. And this one, when I looked at a number of factors, like how much literature there was, what potential it had to succeed in the company, all of these different factors led me to choosing that research topic. Okay, so this is what I'm saying. I'm going to come back to the first thing I said here. Knowing where you are in the process and being able to manage that is going to be key for you, because your industry partner and even your academic supervisor won't end up having the same level of knowledge about this topic as you do. So you have to be in charge, you have to run the thing. And you might receive some pushback from industry. That's probably the last thing I'm going to say. They might tell you that they're not super interested in the direction you're going in, but then you need to sit back and go, well, I have a choice here. Do I try and justify my decision? Do I try and forge ahead and use literature and use all my resources to explain why this is a good area? Or do I yield and do I repackage what I'm doing in a way that they actually appreciate? There's no right or wrong answer to that. It's a difficult thing to do, but that's the skill set you need to prepare yourself for. And the type of company you're in will completely change how you go about doing that. So I did something that wasn't typically under the banner of works at the company. I know other students before have done stuff that's very related to do with, you know, a number of students working at Metro Trains did stuff with sensor networks because that's exactly the core knowledge of their operations. So take some time finding your feet, take charge of the process, make sure that you understand where you are in the process and lean on your academic supervisor in terms of, you know, how do I progress here? Yeah, it'll be a pretty cool experience, and there's nothing wrong. You all know, once you know the company you're going at, there's nothing wrong with, before going to the company, having a read on some literature anyway related to their body of work. Why not take something to the table? I think that's about it from me from now. Thanks, Eddie. You're muted.
Sorry, I was on mute. Thanks very much, Dan. I'm now going to ask Bandita Mainali, Dr. Bandita, to also say a few words about the research topic selection process from the academic supervisor side, because Bandita has been supervising work integrated learning students for a while, and she has a lot of experience in helping students articulate these research topics. So she's seen it all, and I think it'll be very valuable to hear directly from her.
Yep. Thank you, Eddie, for this opportunity. Let me first take this opportunity to congratulate all our students who have enrolled and have been successful to acquire work integrated learning position in various organizations. Congratulations. You are the chosen ones, I would say, because you will be working from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. your office hours in your companies, and at the same time, you'll also be undertaking this academic research. But trust me, it is a very important aspect for an engineering student who will definitely be able to write in their CV afterwards that we've got. We have had this opportunity to acquire professional attributes at the same time, research attributes with this subject, work integrated learning. So this is a splendid opportunity. I believe Eddie and Danielle has covered a lot of information on research topic selection. We as academic supervisors are definitely there to support you in the process. My experience with many students is in the beginning, they kind of are lost in terms of research topic because they are very new in their work environment, and at the same time, they're supposed to explore a potential research topic. So this is where I suggest all of you to get in regular contact with your academic supervisor. And if it is too difficult for you to understand what actually is the problem within the company, that you probably can be involved in research and R&D support for that particular organization. If you are struggling to understand such situations, what we as an academic can do is we can actually organize a meeting with your direct industry supervisor, and we can learn from them what exactly it is where you as a intern can support your organization in terms of R&D support. So that's how we work. But I really encourage all of you to actually try to get a very good grasp of the organization you're working with. Communication is the key, I would say. Talk to your industry supervisor, try to get some information. What is the area they are struggling in terms of their organization performances, and how as a research student, intern, you can support a research support for their particular problem. So that is going to be a very interesting journey for you for sure. But academic supervisors will be always supporting you in the process. So it is going to be easier in that regard. Okay, so we're there to support you. Now, the most important thing for you people to understand is it is, of course, a work integrated learning, but at the same time, you do have certain academic requirements, assignments to be submitted. So make sure that you are familiarizing yourself with the LMS and the resources provided on LMS. There are very nice resources organized for this subject, especially the webinar, the series that we've got on literature review or research topic selection, or even selecting a research methodology. Make sure you are familiarizing yourself with those supplied content. And if there are any confusions, again, your academic supervisor are there to help you. So try to make sure that you choose a topic that aligns well with your work, and it's something that you actually can get from your company. Worst case scenario, if there's nothing, then we are there to support you to get a reasonable research topic. That's all from my side, Eddie. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Bandita. That's great advice there as well. And again, really appreciate the insights. All right, guys. So I want to talk a little bit about this thing here. We've heard from Bandita, we've heard from Daniel, just to sort of make you understand what is the role of the industry supervisor, academic supervisor. We've covered most of it, but there are clear delineations between what the industry supervisor does and academic supervisor does. My advice to you is do not ask the industry supervisor for academic related stuff, right? Not because they might not help you, but because they're probably not the best person to answer those questions, first of all. And second of all, on the proviso that we sell the whole work integrated learning experience with, hey, Mr. Supervisor in company, the student's academic work will not be a burden to your organization. So you can imagine if you keep pestering an industry supervisor about academic related stuff, they might not tell you to your face, but they're probably going to tell me and Daniel and Noor when we visit them, hey, just spending too much time on the academic stuff. You've got to deliver on both fronts. So just make sure that you know what each one. So the industry supervisor is responsible for guiding you in the workplace. You should definitely ask them 1,000,001 questions about how to do certain things, how to operate certain things, etc., etc. They'll probably do that even without you asking them, but keep in mind you've got that resource. They will manage your day-to-day work, your workload, expectations, and so on. So you're going to have at least one direct person that you're reporting to. Often, and very common problem that you have in placements is when you have multiple people asking you to do multiple things. It's a very common thing that you'll experience in the company. Think of it as multiple subjects, multiple supervisors, or course coordinators, lecturers asking you to do multiple things, right? The difference in the company is that you have a direct report. You don't have that in the university. University, you do 4 subjects, you have 4 direct reports. In the company, you have one person who's responsible for managing you. So if someone else is asking you to do something, always say, absolutely, but can I please check with my direct line manager? Keep that in mind. You don't get in trouble. I've seen it too many times. We will work with you, of course, throughout the period as well. And if there's anything that you need to ask us in terms of your industry supervisor, how to deal with them, how to manage them, whether someone's difficult, we have lots of experience in this area. So please make sure that you ask as much as you can. On the academic supervisor side, it's quite clear what their role is, but the primary area you should use them well in is to help you with the research project. That's where they're invaluable. You will meet with your academic supervisor, we say notionally, 1 hour a fortnight. Now, depending on who your supervisor is, they might have a different preference. They might say, let's meet for half an hour every week. Or they might say, let's meet 2 hours every month. My advice is, more frequent meetings are better than meetings once a month, but everyone has their preference. Most commonly, you will see a 1 hour meeting every 2 weeks. Also keep in mind, if you have an imminent problem that really needs to be solved, our academics are friendly, they're accessible, you know them very well. They will help you even if it's not a scheduled meeting. However, Keep in mind that every single one of us is super busy. We're constantly under the pump. Teaching is not the only thing we do at this institution. So in respect of our time as well, try to schedule meetings as opposed to doing ad hoc. I'm just going to drop into your office or Zoom or Teams or whatever it might be. It's a lot more professional, and it means that we can manage our time as well. So use that wisely. I'm not going to talk more about this because I think the rest of it's pretty self-explanatory. I want to briefly touch on supervision. So on LMS, once you log in, you will be able to see your name, you'll be able to see the company, and you will be able to see who your supervisors are. Please don't be alarmed. I am the default co-supervisor for every single one of you, but the person that you will be interacting with on a day-to-day, or let's say fortnightly basis, let me not go back on my own words, is the person on the left-hand side here. So for example, Brody, your supervisor is Dr. Hyder. Milan, your supervisor is Dr. Bandita, and etc., etc. Once you go through the entire list, you'll be able to see who your supervisor is. Research topic. Once week 6 passes and you've selected your research topic, I'll update this here as well. I'll also update the start date based on your contracts, right? Contract's the most important thing. So we've got a track of. I don't have all of them listed here. Log into LMS so you know. But I will also send an email to the students as well as the academic supervisors so that you know who's who. Okay, so what happens next? Once you know who your academic supervisor is, you as the student need to initiate contact. I'm pretty sure that some supervisors, if they realize you're not getting in touch, they're going to reach out to you. My preference is that you reach out to your supervisor with a nice email that says, "Dear Dr. Hyder, my name is Brody. I'm currently placed with Tompkinson Group. I'm starting here and here. I'm doing blah, 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 blah. I've been there since this date. Can you please provide me with half an hour or an hour of your time in the following week or 2 so we can have our initial conversation?" The first meeting is very, very important because you may not have worked with this person or this supervisor in so much detail. You're going to become very close through this experience because it's a very powerful one, but also because you are only dealing with one person from academia for the entire 6-month experience thereabouts. So make sure that you establish a good relationship, make sure that you're on time. Do not book meetings and not turn up. It's very annoying, right? It's very annoying for you. It's very annoying for the supervisor, more so for the supervisor because supervisors tend to turn up all the time, but students don't. If you can't turn up to a meeting that you've scheduled, and you might schedule a regular meeting, you might say, okay, Hyder and Brody, you're going to have your meeting on Thursdays at 4 o'clock, for example. Then it's expected that you turn up to that meeting. And it's expected that you turn up with a little bit of an agenda. Don't just come there twiddling your thumbs, expecting your supervisor to drive the conversation. Think of it as the person who has the knowledge and experience and you asking the questions. It will be a conversation. It's not going to be ping pong per se, but you need to drive it. You need to actually manage it, etc., etc. So reach out to your supervisors and do it ASAP. Don't wait until later on. Even if you haven't started your experience yet, it doesn't matter. Reach out to your supervisor, start the conversation, get some valuable information from them before you start, and then go ahead and do the rest. So that's very, very important for you guys to know. We've already done this part here. The last part is, I hope this person's here with us. I'm not sure whether Aditya. Is Aditya on call here with us? If he is, maybe he can unmute his microphone, but if he's not, I can't see him. Maybe he's not on.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Okay, I had one current WIL student who was going to talk to you briefly about the experience, but I think timing-wise, 6 o'clock exactly. So we did a good job in that. But now I'm going to open the floor up for questions, so Q&A. So guys, please feel free to ask any questions. This is also open to academics. So if you're an academic on this call that you haven't supervised a WIL student before, you're more than welcome to also ask questions, provide advice or anything else. But guys, I'm going to flow the microphone back to you now.
Just quickly, guys, before we go to questions, we're going to have a teacher speak to you now, but seriously, the best advice I can give is you have a network of people who've done WIL before, or your current network as well, lean on that a lot. You're not doing this in a vacuum. There's other people around you, other students particularly, and they're going to have different experiences, valuable experiences. So if you don't have a line of contact with different people, set it up now. All right, question time.
If you got a question, just put your hand up so we can give you the mic.
You can find the hand raising button under reactions.
All right, so Mohammed, go for it. Mohammed was first.
Hey, I was just trying to enroll in WLA and WLB, and I tried variation of enrollment through the online process of Latrobe and mailed the Latrobe team. So they mailed me back saying that EMS 5 WLA is not an offer for week 9 to 18, as you mentioned in the mail, which Eddie sent me. So is it just the semester one, or is it specific to week 9 to 18 and 19 to 29?
Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about. This is, I think Haida and I need to sort this problem out because the experiences are not uniform. At least they haven't been done in the background. So I want to ask Haida for advice on this. The short-term fix is you enroll in 4 WLA, 4 WLB, but the proper fix is for us to actually change the date. So Haida, do you want to add a comment on that?
Well, I prefer to know more about the issue, but definitely we're gonna. So you're not able to enroll, is that right?
Yeah, I'm not able to enroll in the specific weeks like week 9 to 18 and 19 to 28.
Yeah. So the problem, Haida, is that I remember that the 5 WLA, 5 WLB, I believe it's available in semester rather than the weeks.
Yeah.
So, Mohammed, maybe we can take this offline. I will look into this a little bit more.
Yeah.
But we do
You
have
should be able to. Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Sure, we'll mail you then.
So please email me and Haida, please, after this. Thank you.
All right, sweet.
All right, Darcy, you're next, mate.
Yeah, just a pretty quick one. Hopefully, we'll do 800 hours or thereabouts of placement. Do we need to record our hours in some way, or how do we record our hours? Probably my question.
Yep, very good question. Okay, so this is valid. This is a valid question for everyone, guys. You're expected to keep track of your hours. In some companies, the HR manager or your supervisor will also track your hours. In other companies, they will not. They will expect you to track your own hours. So my advice is keep your own hours. Look into what time you're checking in, what time you're checking out. So hopefully you're starting at the same time every day, which makes life easier, but keep track of your hours. Once you start to approach, let's say 650, 700 hours, my advice is to also sit down with the HR manager inside the company or your supervisor and say, hey guys, I'm due to complete in 3 weeks time or 4 weeks time. Just keep that in mind, because then they can roll you into a new contract or keep you on board or whatever it is. So there's no golden rule, unfortunately. It really depends on the company. We're working with small, medium companies. We're also working with large enterprises. But the best rule is always keep your own time, stay on top of your own time, and that'll help you get through. Remember, as far as I'm concerned, I don't actually care whether you do 750 or whether you do 770 or whether you do 820. Right? I'm not going to keep track of that. The company will. So because we have an agreement with the company that you will deliver 800 hours, they're expecting you to do that. So if you're not delivering 800 hours and they know that, they will reach out to me and say, hey, Eddie, this person didn't do what they were expected to do. So I think we can all breathe easier that the student keeps track of their hours, use an Excel spreadsheet, and everyone's happy chappy to go forward with that. Hopefully, Darcy, that explains what might seem like a trivial thing.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Thanks, mate. All right, Jake, you're next.
So I know you touched on it before, but with the so whenever we start the work integrated learning, we're going to start. That's going to be sort of our week 1. Will we have to send you our contracts just so you can keep tab on when our start date is?
You don't have to send your contracts because the contracts that you sign are probably going to be dated and sent to Trobe University. Remember, there's an admin team behind myself and Noor and Daniel and everyone else. There's an admin team that you're going to be dealing with. I believe right now it's probably Natalie and maybe Tim Bendel from the college, or we won't have a college next year, but from the admin team. And they handle all the contracts and so on. So I will have your exact start date. But if your exact start date on your contract and your actual start date, physical start date in the company differ, please let me know.
Yep.
And please just email me and say, hey, Eddie, my actual start date was so-and-so. It's not going to make a huge difference, but it just means that when I'm timing when you should be roughly submitting assessments, so that I'm not sitting there scratching my head thinking, Jake is in week 12 and Jake hasn't submitted anything. What's going on? And then Jake said, oh, I didn't actually start yet, Eddie. And I'm like, all right, well, yeah. So there's a little bit of that to and fro. So just keep us informed.
No worries. Thank you.
Cheers. All right, Tyson.
Yeah, g'day. As you know, with lead, ours goes for a bit longer than the 24 weeks. Essentially, since the thesis is meant to be sort of like the end of the placement, will ours still be due in the 24th week?
Yeah, guys, so it doesn't matter whether you're working, 800 hours within 4 months or whether you're working 800 hours whenever. The last due date, and I mean last, which means that if you don't get it in by then, we're going to have to assassinate you, is the middle of next year. Right? So by the middle of next year, i.e. June, I have to get all of your grades and submit them to the college. Right? There are a few exceptions to that. People that will start very late, and there will be people that start very late. But for the vast majority of you, we're going to be flexible. So if you're starting in November, technically your thesis is due 6 months after you start. However, if you take an extra month to submit your thesis, and as long as you don't go past that June date, I personally don't care. What will be important to you is that the company will say, hey, we've got a full-time contract ready for you, but we can't give you the full-time contract until you have passed all of your assessments. Then you're going to be pressuring me and telling me, Eddie, I want to submit my thesis early because I want to earn $80,000 instead of this casual rate, right? And so in that case, we will come to some agreement how we do that. But irrespective of the hours, you will ultimately have to deliver by that middle of the year period. So Tyson, for you and Jacob as well, you guys are going to be going to lead. You're probably going to push through the 800 hours before everyone else. That doesn't mean that your thesis is due then. That's what I'm saying. You got plenty of time. So if you finish your 800 hours, you've just completed your obligation to the company. You're probably going to be continuing to work in the company if you decide to do so. But your thesis isn't due then. Your thesis will be due much, much later on. So there are two timelines, the academic one and the work one. They're not necessarily directly related to each other in a linear fashion, if that makes sense.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
All right. Joel.
Hey, Eddie. Just a quick question regarding due date first progress report. So like it said on the slide you had up before that it was the 6th week after your contract commences or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing as I'm currently in my 3rd week, does that mean I only have 3 weeks from now to submit it, or?
Because we haven't done this info session here, think of this as your first day. But that being said, if you submit it earlier, that's also okay. All right. So this is true for everyone, guys. The reason I couldn't organize this session earlier is because this is the perfect example. Joel started 3 weeks ago, and others have started last week, and some of you are starting this week. So I can't run 50 info sessions and onboarding sessions for every time someone starts. So I was waiting to accrue a group of students before we did this. But then again, it would be unfair for me to expect you to deliver something 3 weeks from now if you started 3 weeks before. So you have a little bit of leniency, but let's count from today is the official day. So if you've started already, today is your first day in terms of academia. If you want to submit earlier, you're more than welcome to. There's no reason why you can't submit earlier. We just don't want you to submit too much after that period then. So hopefully that answers your question, John.
Yep. Thank you.
Yes. All right. Any more questions, guys? You've got anything that you need to ask, now's the time to do it. Even if it's a comment or anything like that.
I just have a quick questions.
Yep. Is that Matty?
Yep.
All right.
So I'm starting my WIL next week, my placement next week. So for the research part, is the topics, are we gonna get to choose our topics, or is it gonna be like related to the WIL placement?
Absolutely. You get to choose your topic, but the topic needs to be related to something that is being conducted in the company. Ideally, if you can't find anything in the company, which I highly doubt is the case, you can pick something else. But the topic has to be related to the domain that you're operating in. And the good news is, Matty, you're going to Build Group. I think we've placed something like 50 students at Build Group over the last 5 years. So we have plenty of experience with Build Group and the domain they operate in. We have lots of example theses from Build Group. So it's not like you're going to be struggling to, define a topic, if you know what I mean.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Looks like everyone's clear on everything. So shortly you will receive an email from me letting you know who your supervisor is. If you can't see it on LMS, if you can see LMS, then please just go ahead and communicate with your supervisor anyways. I'll send an email around to everyone just so you have that. If you have not, and by the way, guys, whoever's on this call or whoever's going to be listening to this after in the recording, which I'll post on YouTube, share the link. If you're not enrolled yet, please do so now. If you have a problem to enroll, please reach out. Like, for example, Mohammed will sort his issue out shortly. But for everyone else, it is imperative that you are enrolled and that I can see you in LMS. We've had some really nasty experiences where people were 6 weeks in and they were still not enrolled. And they use that as an excuse for submitting things late and doing stuff like that. I'm not going to accept that as an excuse, especially after reminding you constantly. So please get enrolled. If you've got a problem, let us know. We'll help you do that. But there should be any problems. Matt, you got a question. Matthew Corbetti.
Yeah, sorry, quick question. So I've spoken to Stantec just to push back my start date a little bit, because I think originally they had planned the 16th of January. I've had a few commitments and stuff that have come up, so I've had to push it back to the 31st, and they've said that's all fine.
Yep.
They've just got to reissue all the paperwork. Should I let Natalie know, or any of the guys from WIL, that I'm pushing it back, or should I leave it to Stantec to sort that out? Because I'm assuming they'll reach out to them.
You don't need to worry about it. So if you can just send me an email and say, hey, my actual official starting date will be the 31st.
Yep.
So I can manage the academic side of things. In terms of the other end, it doesn't really matter.
Okay.
No one's going to say anything.
All right, too easy. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks. Hassan.
Hi, Eddie. I have submitted the variation request, but I haven't heard back from Trobe.
When did you submit it?
A couple of days ago.
It's not McDonald's, as you probably already know from your previous experiences. So guys, just be a little bit patient. It's probably going to take maybe a little bit longer than what we intended to get that variation of enrollment. If you don't hear back, let's say within 5 to 7 days, then we'll jump on top of it. But a couple of days, the college is probably right now inundated with some of that stuff, and there's changes going on as well. So just be a little bit patient, but stay on top of it, Hassan. It's good that you know when you submitted it. If you don't get a response, as I said, 5 to 7 working days, then we'll follow up, okay?
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. All right, any more questions? I thought I saw one more hand. Eric had a hand go up. Eric, was your question similar to Hassan's?
Not really. I just haven't received any correspondence from my WIL placement in terms of a start date or anything like that. But I did get like a security clearance package. that
Okay.
was meant to complete, but I've handed that in, and I haven't received anything from the WIL mailbox or anything from CCL. So I was just wondering if there was an issue in terms of maybe the security, or I'm not too sure.
Probably not, but we can figure that out. When was that last
Okay.
correspondence?
The 21st of November. So I've filled that out and I've handed it in last week, and I haven't received anything.
So do you want to, can you send an email to the person that interviewed you from CCL?
Sure.
Just reach out to them and say, hey, you know, it's been 2 weeks now. I just wanted to make sure that you've got everything. Given the fact that you're going to work in a highly secure facility, yours is probably going to take a little bit longer and clearance and stuff like that. It's not unusual. I mean, after all, you're printing money, working with cash. So,
Exactly. Fair enough.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, just be a little bit patient. It'll be fine.
No worries. Cheers.
Awesome. Thanks, mate. All right, guys. Any last questions before we depart? Kyle.
I haven't received anything about a start date either, but I haven't had to fill out any security or anything yet.
All right. So just communicate back to the person that interviewed you about the start date, right?
Okay.
There's normally a HR process in the background between your interview and them onboarding all the paperwork and all of that stuff. So just communicate with them. They'll let you know. Like I said, if it's only been a couple of days, just give them some time. But if it's been more than 2 weeks, then definitely communicate with them just so they can speed things up. But ultimately, it's gone through. It's just a matter of time.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. And once you find out when you're officially starting, please let us know.
Will do.
All right. Cheers. All right. I think we've exhausted all the questions for now. If anything else comes to mind, guys, and you need to ask another question, but you can't think of it now, or maybe it pops up into your mind later on, reach out. Okay. We're more than happy to assist you any way we can. And other than that, good luck. Enjoy the experience. You'll definitely love the experience. It's the best thing that's going to happen to you. Most people get jobs. In fact, I got really good news a couple of days ago from one of our students, international student, Aditya, who's not here, unfortunately, but I would have loved for him to tell you his story. Don KR got a job, got a full-time offer of a job, and that's the next part of his career now. So guys, from today on, please consider yourself an engineer. You are a junior engineer, but you are an engineer. That means you're going to be solving problems, accountability. Yeah, it's the next part of your career. So good luck with it. I will visit you with probably Daniel or Noor, or maybe both of them, or maybe even supervisors on site. Doesn't matter where you are, whether it's Snowy Hydro or Western Victoria or somewhere else. I will physically come to see you to see what it is that you're doing, make sure that no one's taking advantage of you. And therefore, if you ever have any problems, irrespective of whether they're university or work related or something that's outside of that scope, just remember, we have a lot of experience with this. We've seen what companies do. We've worked in companies ourselves. Always reach out. All right? We're one team. We're going to represent Latrobe the best possible way. And that means there's no compromise on asking questions. Be aware of us. We're here to support. So good luck. Enjoy the experience and all the best, guys. Take care. Thank you for attending the session.
Thank you.
Enjoy, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.